The Book on Rental Property Investing by Brandon Turner. Ever wonder how the tiniest moments can completely derail your entire life plan? I'm talking about those seemingly random instances. A casual chat, bumping into someone at just the right time, or maybe a message from a fortune cookie. Picture this. You're 18, fresh out of high school, standing at one of those big crossroads moments. Everyone's pushing you toward the safe choice, the predictable route. You're sitting in this dimly lit Chinese buffet with your best friend, having one of those deep conversations about what comes next. He hits you with a question. When we grow up, do you want an ordinary life or something extraordinary? You mull it over. Ordinary feels comfortable, realistic. So you answer, I'll take ordinary. That works for me. You genuinely believe you're meant for an ordinary life, and honestly, you're completely fine with that. Then the check arrives with 2 fortune cookies. You crack yours open, pull out that little white paper strip, and there it is in red ink. 9 words that feel like the universe just called you out personally. 9 words that make your stomach drop. There is no such thing as an ordinary life. This actually happened to a guy named Brandon Turner, who wrote the book we're diving into today, The Book on Rental Property Investing. At that moment, Brandon was totally locked in to the ordinary plan. Law school was on the horizon, following the safe, responsible path his parents had mapped out for him. But that tiny slip of paper planted something in his mind. It gave him permission to question the life everyone told him to want, and to start figuring out what he actually wanted instead. That search brought him to real estate, a world that seemed divided between sketchy get-rich-quick hustlers and terrifying cautionary tales. But Brandon discovered something different. He stumbled onto this then-new website called BiggerPockets, where he found normal people, regular folks just like him, who weren't overnight millionaires. They were quietly using real estate, not to strike it rich by Friday, but to build something way more valuable: genuine freedom. Today, Brandon Turner is one of the most trusted names in real estate investing. Not because he's some billionaire flying around on a private jet, but because he's still that same guy who just chose a different path. He took what he learned and built a life where he only answers to himself, his family, and his own goals. The book on rental property investing is basically the roadmap he created along the way. By the time we're done here today, you'll understand the 4 hidden wealth generators that make rental properties one of the most powerful financial tools on the planet. And more importantly, you'll see that building wealth isn't about being brilliant or taking insane risks. It's about building a system, a simple, repeatable machine that works for you, so you don't spend your entire life working for a paycheck. So where does this journey actually start? It begins with a question most people never really ask themselves. What do you actually want? Sounds simple enough, right? But seriously, think about it. Is it just about money? Or is there something deeper going on? Maybe it's the freedom to never miss your kid's school play. Maybe it's being able to travel without begging your boss for time off. Maybe it's that peace of mind knowing your family will be okay, no matter what happens to your job. Brandon Turner calls this your why, and your why is the fuel that powers everything else. Because, let's be real, investing can be tough. There will be challenges. There will be days when quitting sounds amazing, and on those days, making $1 million isn't going to cut it as motivation. But being there for my family, now that's a reason that'll push you through anything. Once you nail down your why, you need a vehicle to get you there. For Brandon and millions of others, that vehicle is rental property investing. And here's the thing. Its power isn't what most people assume. It's not just about collecting rent checks every month. That's only one part of the equation. The real magic comes from what Brandon calls the 4 wealth generators. Master these 4 principles, and you'll understand more about building wealth than almost everyone you know. First up, and the most obvious one, is cash flow. This is what everyone thinks of first. It's the money that ends up in your pocket each month after you collect the rent and pay all your bills. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs, the whole deal. Imagine owning an apple tree. The cash flow is like the apples you get to pick and eat every single month. It's your profit, your income. It's what keeps your investment alive. Brandon is crystal clear on this. Only buy properties that give you positive cash flow from day one. But here's where things get interesting. The second wealth generator is appreciation. This is how your property's value tends to go up over time. So while you're harvesting those monthly apples, the tree itself is growing bigger and more valuable. This happens naturally through inflation and demand. But smart investors can also create what's called forced appreciation by making strategic improvements, like converting a 2-bedroom house into a 3-bedroom. Boom, instant value increase. The third wealth generator is one most people completely miss: loan paydown. When you buy a property with a mortgage, who actually pays that loan every month? Technically you do, but you're using your tenant's rent money to do it. Every single month, part of that payment chips away at what you owe, which means your ownership stake, your equity, grows. It's like your tenant is stopping by every day to water your apple tree, helping it grow stronger and bigger, while you're doing absolutely nothing. This is wealth building on autopilot, happening every single month, quietly, in the background. And the fourth wealth generator is tax benefits. Here's something cool. The government actually wants people like you to provide housing. To encourage this, they offer incredible tax breaks to real estate investors. You can deduct expenses like mortgage interest, property taxes, and repair costs. But the biggest benefit is something called depreciation. The government lets you deduct a chunk of your property's value from your taxes each year, as if the building is wearing out, even when its actual value is climbing. This paper loss can often shield your cash flow, meaning you might pay very little tax, or even zero tax, on the profit you're making. It's like the government handing you premium fertilizer for your apple tree, just as a thank you for growing it. When you stack these 4 forces together, cash flow, appreciation, loan paydown, and tax benefits, you don't just have an investment. You've got a serious wealth-building machine. Now you might be thinking, this sounds great, but what about those nightmare stories? What about getting calls at 2 in the morning to fix a broken toilet? This is hands down the biggest fear that keeps people sitting on the sidelines. And Brandon tackles it head on. He says the only landlords fixing toilets in the middle of the night are the ones treating their investment like a hobby, not a business. Think about that for a second. A hobbyist reacts to problems. A business owner builds systems to prevent them. A hobbyist treats tenants like buddies and gets walked all over. A business owner has clear rules and enforces them fairly and consistently. A hobbyist gets stressed and burns out. A business owner creates processes that let them step away and still make money. This is the most crucial mindset shift in the entire book. You're not just a landlord, you're the chief executive of your own real estate company. And a chief executive's job isn't to fix toilets. It's to build a system that gets toilets fixed. So how do you actually build that system? It starts with a plan. Brandon shares this quote from Alice in Wonderland, where Alice asks the Cheshire Cat which direction she should go. The cat says, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to." Alice says she doesn't really care where, and the cat replies, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go." You're not Alice. You know where you want to go. You've got your why. Your plan is the roadmap to get there. It doesn't need to be some fancy 100-page business plan. It can be a simple document you write for yourself, laying out your goals and the strategy to reach them. For example, Brandon sketches out a sample plan for how someone could build $1 million net worth in roughly 7 years. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a simple, methodical process. Buy a small, multifamily property that hits certain cash flow and value standards. Save the cash flow from that property. After a couple years, use that saved cash flow to buy another one. Repeat this a few times, and then, using something called a 1031 exchange, trade your smaller properties for one larger apartment building. Suddenly, your growth becomes exponential. The key isn't luck or genius. It's a repeatable blueprint. But you can't build a business alone. Every great chief executive has a team. Your real estate team isn't about hiring employees. It's about building relationships with key people who'll help you succeed. You need a great real estate agent who gets investors, a lender who believes in your vision, and reliable contractors who can do the work you can't. But maybe the most important team member at the start is a mentor, someone who's a few steps ahead and willing to share their wisdom. You don't find a mentor by asking, "Will you be my mentor?" You find one by being curious, offering value, and building a genuine relationship. With your plan and team in place, it's time to find a property. This is where most people get stuck in what's called analysis paralysis, endlessly hunting for the perfect deal. Brandon's approach is a numbers game. He suggests you should aim to look at 100 properties, make offers on 10, and expect to get just one accepted. That means 99% of what you look at won't work out, and that's totally fine. You're not looking for just any property. You're hunting for a deal that fits your system. How do you know if it's a good deal? You run the numbers. You need to become a master of analysis. Brandon gives you simple rules of thumb to quickly filter out bad deals, like the 50% rule, which assumes that about half your rental income will go toward expenses other than the mortgage. These aren't laws, just quick mental shortcuts. For the deals that pass the initial test, you do a deep dive, calculating every possible expense, vacancy, repairs, capital expenditures like eventually needing a new roof, to find the true cash flow. The core principle is this: you make your money when you buy. You can't turn a bad deal into a good one through wishful thinking. The profit gets locked in by the price you pay. But this brings up another huge question. How can I possibly afford to buy a property? I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank. This is where creativity comes in. You don't need to be rich to start. You just need to be smart. Brandon introduces the idea of leverage, which is simply using other people's money, usually a bank's, to buy an asset. Instead of saving up $100,000 for a house, you might only need to save $20,000 for a down payment. He then shares two incredibly powerful strategies for people with limited cash. The first is house hacking. This is buying a small multifamily property, a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, living in one unit and renting out the others. The rent from your tenants can cover most or even all of your mortgage. Think about that. You could basically live for free. All that money you were throwing at rent can now be saved and invested in your next property. It's one of the most powerful ways to get started, and because you're living in the property, you can often get a loan with a very low down payment, sometimes as little as 3.5%. The second strategy is what Brandon famously calls the BRRRR method. It's an acronym for Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat. Here's how it works. You buy a fixer-upper property at a discount, using short-term money like a private loan or cash. You then renovate it. That's the rehab. Once it's fixed up and looking sharp, you place a quality tenant in it. That's the rent. Now, Because you forced appreciation and the property is worth much more, you go to a bank and get a new, long-term loan on it. That's the refinance. If you bought it right, the new loan can be large enough to pay back your original short-term loan and all your rehab costs. You've pulled all your initial investment back out, but you still own a cash-flowing rental property with built-in equity. Then, you take your money and do it again. That's the repeat. It's a way to recycle your capital over and over, acquiring multiple properties without running out of money. Once you own the property, the final piece of the system is management. And this all circles back to that core idea, run it like a business. This means having an ironclad tenant screening process. Brandon says 90% of your landlord headaches can be eliminated before a tenant even moves in, simply by choosing the right person. This means doing background checks, credit checks, verifying income, and calling past landlords. No exceptions. It also means having clear rules in your lease and actually enforcing them. What happens when rent is late? You follow your system. You charge the late fee you said you would. You deliver the legal notice you're required to. You don't get emotional. You don't get sucked into sob stories. You follow the process. It might feel harsh at first, but it trains your tenants to respect you and your business. And this leads to one of the most profound lessons in the entire book. Brandon says, if you are unhappy, your system is broken. Read that again. If you are unhappy, your system is broken. If you're stressed about late rent, your rent collection system is broken. Fix it. If you're frustrated with constant repair calls, your maintenance system is broken. Fix it. If you're tired of dealing with tenant drama, your screening system is broken. Fix it. This idea is incredibly empowering. It means your stress isn't just part of the job. It's a signal that something in your business needs improvement. And you have the power to improve it. You can create a business that serves your life, not a life that becomes a slave to your business. Finally, what's the end game? Do you just collect rentals forever? Brandon discusses several exit strategies, but one of the most powerful is the 1031 exchange. This is a section of the tax code that lets you sell an investment property and defer paying any capital gains taxes as long as you roll the proceeds into a new, like-kind property of equal or greater value. It's a way to continuously level up your portfolio. You can sell a small, high-maintenance duplex and trade it for a larger, more passive apartment building, all without giving a huge chunk of your profits to the government. You can do this repeatedly, growing your wealth exponentially. And if you hold those properties until you pass away, your heirs can inherit them at a stepped-up basis, which can wipe away those deferred taxes forever. It's the ultimate strategy for building generational wealth. From a simple fortune cookie to a multi-million-dollar strategy, the journey Brandon Turner lays out is clear. It's a call to stop dreaming about an extraordinary life and to start building the systems that will create it. When you step back and look at the book on rental property investing, you realize it's not really about houses. It's about a mindset. It's a blueprint for designing a life of freedom, and rental properties just happen to be the raw materials. The most powerful lesson, for me, isn't about cash flow formulas or financing tricks. It's the shift from being a passive participant in your own financial life to becoming the active architect of it. Most of us are taught to be employees, to trade our time for money. This book teaches you to become an owner, to build assets that make money for you, whether you're working, sleeping, or on vacation. The idea that, if you are unhappy, your system is broken, is revolutionary. It applies to so much more than just being a landlord. It's a philosophy for life. It transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a problem solver. It puts the control back in your hands. Stress is no longer just something to endure. It's a signal to innovate, to improve, to build a better machine. And that's what this is all about, building a machine. A machine that produces not just income, but time. A machine that gives you options. A machine that lets you say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't. So how can you start applying these ideas today, even if you're years away from buying your first property? Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, practice the mindset shift. For the next week, every single time you catch yourself thinking or saying the words, "I can't," stop and consciously rephrase it as a question. How can I? I can't afford that becomes, how can I afford that? I can't find any good deals becomes, how can I find good deals? This simple change trains your brain to look for solutions instead of stopping at roadblocks. Second, start building your educational foundation. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Start spending time with the right voices. Dedicate just 15 minutes a day, maybe during your commute or while you're getting ready in the morning, to listening to a real estate podcast, like the one from BiggerPockets. Immerse yourself in the language and mindset of investors. You'll be amazed at how quickly you start thinking like one. Third, start playing the analysis game. You don't need money to do this. Just go on a website like Zillow or Realtor.com, find a random house for sale in a town you know, and try to run the numbers. Guess what it would rent for? Use the 50% rule to estimate expenses. Figure out a potential mortgage payment. Does it cash flow? It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. The goal is to start building the muscle of looking at a house not just as a place to live, but as a potential asset. The journey to an extraordinary life begins with a single step, and often that step is simply the decision to see the world differently. This book gives you a new set of eyes to do just that. That was a summary of the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner. We've certainly covered the big ideas today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a map of the Grand Canyon. The real magic happens when you go there yourself. It's in the quiet moments of the journey, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a curiosity in you, I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your future. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if this exploration has brought you any value, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing and building together.